So, you like a long-eared Batman, do ya? Is this long enough for ya? Is it? Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Today, I'm showcasing head swaps with the new DC Multiverse Black and Gray Knightfall Batman. Before we dig in, just my standard disclaimer that figures with this style of articulation are not compatible, so no head swaps with any of these, but I did get a request for a trunk swap between these two. Unfortunately, the Knightfall ones have been glued in place, so that's going to have to wait for another day. In the meantime, I can show you using the blue and gray version. I'll warn you, it's a bit on the big side, but the belt kind of helps mitigate that. Other way around, and if you want a capsule belt on Hush, you're going to have to use the Spawn 2-pack. The Knightfall shorts are way too small and will not fit. With that out of the way, on to the head swaps. First up, and for one of my favorites, and here we have the DC Collectibles DC Essentials Rebirth Batman. I'm actually pretty surprised by how similar their heights are. Because of the pegs not matching, this one doesn't click into place. It also forces the head forward and up, but if you were determined to make it work, I'm sure you could. Other way around, and with a little bit of heat, you can get the head on there. It's actually pretty snug, and overall provides a really solid short-eared option. Moving over to McFarlane, and here we have the DC Multiverse Detective Comics 1000 Batman. As the first standard McFarlane Batman, I do feel like this one's a bit outdated at this point. As usual, this head is a huge upgrade. The colors are slightly off, and the head doesn't actually click into place, but if you were determined to make this body work, it's a great combination. Other way around, and as much as I don't like this head, it does have a certain amount of charm here. I think it's just because it's better proportioned on this one, but this combo gives a real Batman the Animated Series vibe. Next up, and for one that always has some interesting swaps, and here we have the Grim Knight. In general, Grim Knight suffers from having a flatter forehead. For a murderous, more Punisher-style Batman, I do like the idea of those long, severe ears, and overall it's a good fit. If you like what you see, there you go. Other way around, and in spite of its limitations, it's still a pretty good short-eared Batman. I usually prefer my Batman to have a prefrontal cortex, but just standing on a shelf, I dig it. For one of my favorite Batman heads, and here we have Dark Knight's Death Metal, this one's just a good all-around short-eared option. As much as I like the head that comes on this body, I've always felt that a longer-eared option would have been better. The sharper points just add to that metal feel. McFarlane, of course, was just following the comics, but that doesn't mean we have to. Other way around, and when it comes to short-eared Batmans, it doesn't really get much shorter than this. I do have a short-eared custom in mind for this body, so I'll keep this head in mind. At a distance, though, the ears are so short that they barely show up at all. Next up, and here we have Arkham Knight, which I think is one of the best Batman figures McFarlane has made. There is a Prestige-style repaint of this that just came out, but I'm probably going to be passing on that since I'm happy with this one. If you want to give this body a bit more comic book flair, I think this is a great combination. Yes, this head is a bit on the small side, but in fairness, so is the original. Because the original head's a bit on the small side, it actually balances out here pretty well. Stylistically, only you can decide if it works for you, but as extra long-eared options go, it's pretty solid. While I'm here, Adrian asked for size comparisons with Hush and Page Puncher Superman with the new Prestige Batman, but since I'm probably not getting that one, here they are with the regular version. Hope this helps. Next up, and for one that I'm particularly curious about, and here we have DC Rebirth. Side by side, and these two are of a similar stature. Obviously, Rebirth Batman didn't have long ears, though I do like this head better than the Rebirth one. Still, if this inspires any of your customizing juices, here you go. Other way around, and this is a really good short-eared option for this body. It's actually kind of nice because the Rebirth head usually doesn't work on a whole lot of other figures. This, however, is a pretty solid combination. For one of my favorite figures to do head swaps with, and here we have Future's End. Strictly speaking, it's Tim Fox under the mask, but the combinations always look so good. As usual, this isn't accurate, but it does look cool. I maintain that this would be a great template for a realistic Batman costume. Other way around, and this head is always a win. It could work as a helmeted option for the Bat Cycle, but whatever you do with it, it's gonna look great. Next up, and for another one of my favorite Batman heads, and here we have Page Punchers based on the art of Lee Bermejo. Similar to Dark Knight's Death Metal, this is one of my favorite short-eared Batman heads. If you want a long-eared version of Page Punchers, I think it works. That said, it might sit just ever so low. Other way around, and this one sits fine. If you wanted a short-eared option on this body, it's a good one, though I dare say it might be just a bit over-detailed compared to the rest of the figure. On the subject of page punchers, and here we have Batman as he appeared in Injustice 2. If I'm honest, this isn't really one of my preferred Batman designs. With that being said, it should come as no surprise that I have zero interest in this. This, however, is a different story. I know it's not accurate, but this head is definitely an improvement, and if the whole thing was black, it would really feel like a long-lost movie suit. For another video game Batman, and here we have the Solomon Grundy Build-A-Wave Arkham City Batman. As I say every time, I know a lot of you use this as your main display Batman. One of my issues with the Arkham City figure is that the face is kind of on the long side, so this really balances that out better. It could be argued that this head's a bit small, but overall the proportions on this figure is already kinda cattywampus anyway. Other way around, and I really dig the longer, more menacing ears. To me, this feels more like what he looked like in Knightfall. Combine it with a spiky shoulder cape and you'd really have something. Next up is the Target exclusive Sinestro Corps Batman from Arkham Knight. This is one of my favorite long-eared Batman heads, so I'm really curious. Of the combinations we've looked at so far, I think I like this one best. It definitely adds a bit of edge without being too overly detailed, and overall just cuts a really nice silhouette. Conversely, this one looks good if you want to make your Sinestro Corps Batman look a bit more comic style than video game. The peg's a bit loose, so you might need to switch that out too, but again, as a comic style Sinestro Corps Batman, this really works for me. For the comic style Batman, I might just be the most curious about, and here we have Jim Gordon. I've previously said that if you like the combination of Jim Gordon's head on the Knightfall body, you should wait for the black and gray, and here we are. You know, I might just have to take back what I just said about Sinestro Corps Batman. This might be Jim Gordon instead of Bruce Wayne, but I really like the jaw on this guy. I don't know, this is one I might just stick with. Other way around, and this is an improvement too. The Knightfall head is a bit smaller, so it actually fits this body better, so the proportions just work better overall. For one final comic version, and here's the blue and gray digital version of Rebirth. The truth is, I'm not actually interested in this head. No, for me, it's all about the unmasked Bruce Wayne head. I know this isn't everybody's mind's eye of Bruce Wayne, and I do hope we get more unmasked heads in the future, but for now, I'm pretty happy with this. While I'm here, I recently got a request for a trunk swap between these two. Neither the blues nor yellows match, but here you go. Other way around, and same thing with the grays. Once I get this one unglued though, I really want to try the black trunks. Moving over to movies, and here's Michael Keaton as he appeared in The Flash. I've made no bones about the fact that I don't like this Keaton head, so I'm curious to see if this is an upgrade. Similar to Injustice 2, and I have zero interest in this combination. This, however, I can work with. The neck might be a bit thick for some, but I think that a clever customizer will find some creative possibilities here. On the subject of Michael Keaton, and here we have the Gold Label 1989 version that came packed with the Batmobile. I chose the Gold Label because it reminds me of the Dark Knight collection by Kenner. As predicted, this brings me right back to childhood. I know it doesn't look like Keaton, but to be fair, neither does the McFarlane head, but I look at this and a dozen colorful repaints fill my imagination. Other way around, and the proportions are okay. Again, this isn't quite the Keaton likeness we were hoping for, but if you wanted to try to customize this into one of the alternate suits we saw in The Flash, I do think you could. From one of the most beloved Batman to one of the most infamous, and here we have George Clooney. I'm not entirely sure what you'd want to do with this. Similar to 89 though, and the whited out eyes really bring me back to the old Kenner figures. On the flip side, I didn't have a lot of hope for this configuration, but I like it more than I expected. Love him or hate him, Clooney has a good generic Batman face, so this looks like a realistic version of the Dark Knight. And thanks to all the fabric tugs, this looks the closest to just a dude in a Batman outfit. For one that I know I have a tendency of overlooking in head swap videos, and here's Christian Bale from the Dark Knight. Because of how complicated the Dark Knight design is, this is kind of a tonal mismatch to me. Though the whited out eyes do kind of remind me of when he was using that sonar gimmick. I will say though, if Christian Bale's mask looked a bit more like this, I probably would have liked the costume better. Conversely, this has a similar feel to the Clooney configuration, by which I mean it looks like an actual guy dressed as Batman. Even so, while Bale might be the superior Batman, action figure wise I don't like this combination quite as much. For a more grounded, more realistic, tactical style Batman, and here's Robert Pattinson from The Batman. This one comes from the Batman movie 6-pack. Similar to the Lee Bermejo design, if you wanted a more grounded, realistic Batman, this is a great way to go. The head sits a bit high and a bit loose, so you will need to do something about that, and hopefully his mask looks a little bit more like this in the sequel. Other way around, and he ain't got no neck. It's also a bit big for this body, and overall I just don't really know why why you'd want to do this. Of course, for the most tactical Batman of all, and here we have Ben Affleck as he appeared in the Justice League movie. Like Pattinson, this one also comes from the Batman movie 6-pack. I love a good armored Batman, and this is a very solid design. Thanks to that Frank Miller style logo, you can definitely make this work as a comic book option. Other way around, and this is the best Ben Affleck head McFarlane has given us. Stylistically, it's a bit of a mismatch, but it does provide a fun peek into what his early days under the cowl might have looked like. And lastly, here's Batfleck as he appeared in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. With a lot of you using Batfleck as your main display Batman, it only makes sense to see how a comic-style head looks on this body. If you're going to do this, I recommend also swapping out the Knightfall neck peg because it's a bit on the shorter side. Even then, it does still sit a bit high and maybe just a bit too narrow. But if you wanted to use this body as the base for a realistic comic version, I think that there is something there. Other way around, and I suggest using the Knightfall peg for this one also. Similar to the Clooney combination, this really does just look like a realistic Batman come to life. With a Hush-style logo and a pouch belt, I'd say it might just be perfect. Which combination was your favorite? Sound off in the comments below. While you're down there, let me know if there are any that you tried that I didn't think of. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.